Fellow patriots, I believe that the government, including the Department of Labor and the Department of Home Affairs, should investigate restaurants, not just ocean basket restaurants, or not just these popular restaurants and the franchises that we all know, but every restaurant and every eatery. Because I have a knowing suspicion that quite a lot of the eateries and the restaurants in the country do not comply with the labor laws of the country, including the Labor Relations Act, the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, the Minimum Wage Act, and many other laws and acts and regulations that govern employment and labor in our country. Now, I'm going to share a personal story which would testify to my own experience about this. When I was 22 years old, many years ago, yes, it was many years ago, even though I may look like I'm 22 right now, I was a waiter. I worked as a waiter at a coffee shop, and when I went to get a job at the coffee shop, I and my friend approached the boss, the owner of the coffee shop, and he wanted to give us a very flimsy and very illegal looking contract like thing that he wanted us to sign. Now, my friend's mother is an HR practitioner, so we asked her to take a look at this contract and refused to work until the contract was fixed. She took one look at the contract and discovered that all the other employees in the restaurant and the other restaurant that the gentleman owned were offered these contracts. She told him flat out that these contracts were illegal, that they did not comply with any laws in the country, and that he should change these contracts and offer these employees new contracts. We received the new contracts. However, it was a very hard and very difficult environment to work in, because we worked for long hours, from Monday to Saturday, from 6 to 6. We only had a half an hour break. And when I challenged some of these things, and when I challenged the legalities of his employment procedures and his employment processes, the man saw it fit to fire me. The next weekend, my friend was fired. Now, this is the story of many other South Africans who work in the retail sector, who work in restaurants, who work in basically quite a lot of companies, like including journalists. You know, you'd think that journalists get paid a lot of money, but we don't get permanent contracts. We don't get full-time contracts. The contracts we receive are tenuous at best and don't really look like they comply with the labor laws. Waiters, journalists, and many other workers are not given the right to join unions. And when someone joins a union, automatically the boss labels you as a troublemaker. Now, joining a union is part and parcel of our constitution as South Africans. Besides that, getting minimum wage, getting basic income, getting a contract, and getting getting some days off, that's what the laws of the country state. However, that's not what waiters experience. Now, where did it go wrong? Whose fault is this? Surely it's not just the business's fault, but it's also the fault of the government that is not doing proper checks, that is not following procedures and due processes in ensuring that these businesses do not flout these labor laws of the country. Surely it is also the councils and the bodies that have been established and appointed to ensure that none of these laws are broken. Surely it has to be the fault of the people in the country that do not speak up enough, that do not protect the whistleblowers, that do not fight for the right of the workers. Surely it must be more than just the owners of the restaurants who are breaking our hearts, who are breaking our backs, who are depriving workers of what is due them. Surely it must also be the fault of South Africans who go and eat at these restaurants. And then when we get to these restaurants, we act rudely towards these waiters. We shout at them, we treat them like they are slaves. We are no better than the restaurants themselves. We need to take a deep look into ourselves as a country and ask ourselves, is this the kind of country that we as patriots want? Because if we are patriots, we are going to hold every restaurant, whether it is owned by a government official, whether it is owned by a celebrity, whether it is owned by someone nobody knows. They need to be held accountable. They need to be reminded that there are laws in this country and that there are consequences to not abiding by these laws. Now, as a South African, what are you going to do the next time you walk into a restaurant and you look into the eyes of the waiters, waitresses, chefs, and all the other employees? Probably don't have a contract. They probably have been on their feet for 12 hours. They have probably not slept enough. What are you going to do? Government employees, political parties, government, GNU, what are you going to do? Because it's not just waiters, it's not just restaurants, it's also NGO workers, it's also workers at sponsor shops, it's also workers at retail outlets, it's also workers at these small businesses that people don't even know exist. Just because you own a small business doesn't give you the right to flout the laws of the country. The laws of the country are supreme, and we are all called as patriotic. I hope that I'm calling on patriots here to comply by the law, and stern action must be taken against those who intentionally flout the law and contravene the laws of the country pertaining to labor relations.